my life for the past 5 years could be measured in rejected offerings. It began the day I married David, a kind, loving man who came as a package deal with his 2 children, Liam and Chloe. Liam was 12 then, a fortress of adolescent cynicism, and Chloe was 10, a wide-eyed girl who quickly learned to take her cues from her older brother. I, Sarah, was 32, filled with a naive optimism that love and persistence could conquer all. I tried everything. For Chloe's 11th birthday, I remembered her mentioning a fleeting interest in astronomy. I spent a month planning the perfect party, a galaxy-themed cake, glow-in-the-dark stars covering the ceiling, and the piece de resistance, a brand-new telescope set up in the backyard. When the time came to present it, she offered a polite, paper-thin thank you before her friends dragged her away to giggle over a pop star on their phones. The telescope gathered dust in the garage, a monument to my failed attempt. For Liam, I tried to connect through his interests. He had a passion for classic rock, a love I shared. I bought vintage vinyl records of bands he mentioned, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. "Oh, cool," he'd say, his eyes never leaving his video game. The records would remain in their sleeves, placed on a shelf he never looked at. I tried baking his favorite cookies, helping with his impossible math homework, offering to drive him and his friends to the movies. Each attempt was met with a wall of polite, impenetrable indifference. It wasn't outright rudeness, which I might have known how to fight. It was worse. It was dismissal. I was a piece of furniture in their lives, functional, present, but ultimately unnoticed. The turning point, the moment the hurt curdled into a cold, hard knot in my stomach, happened about a year ago. I was in the kitchen, humming to myself as I prepped dinner, a complicated lasagna recipe David loved. Liam and Chloe were in the living room with a couple of their friends, thinking I was out of earshot. "Is she always trying this hard?" one of the friends, a boy named Mark, asked. I froze, my hand hovering over the basil. Liam snorted. "Dude, you have no idea. It's like her full-time job." "Liam, do you want to talk about your day?" "Chloe, I saw this dress and thought of you. It's exhausting." "My dad's girlfriend is the same," another voice chimed in. So desperate. Then came Chloe's voice, a dagger disguised in sweetness. "At least your dad's girlfriend is cool. Sarah tried to get me a telescope for my birthday." "Like, who does that? It's so cringe." They all laughed. It wasn't a loud, boisterous laugh. It was a low, mocking chuckle that echoed in the cavernous space of my chest. Try hard. Desperate. Cringe. The words bounced around my head. I had spent 5 years pouring my heart, my time, and my energy into these children, trying to build a bridge to their guarded little islands. And all they saw was a desperate woman trying too hard. In that moment, something inside me didn't just break, it cauterized. The open wound of my hope closed up, leaving behind a thick, protective scar. I stopped trying. Not overtly, but the grand gestures ceased. I still cooked, cleaned, and ran the household. I was still a wife to their father. But I retreated emotionally. I built my own walls, not of cynicism, but of self-preservation. The silence in the house grew louder. David noticed, of course. "Is everything okay with you and the kids?" he'd ask, his brow furrowed with concern. "They're teenagers, David," I'd reply with a placid smile. "They need their space." It was easier than explaining the profound emptiness of being rejected in your own home. The idea for the vacation came from my mother. My grandmother, my beloved Nana in Italy, was turning 90. "You must come, Sarah," my mother urged over the phone. "The whole family will be there. Your cousins from Australia, your aunt from Canada. It might be the last time we're all together with her. A trip to Italy. To my family." The thought was like a ray of sunshine piercing through a perpetually gray sky. A place where I wasn't the stepmom. A place where I was just Sarah. Daughter, granddaughter, cousin, niece. A place where I belonged without having to try. That evening, I sat at my laptop, looking at airline tickets. Rome. Florence. A week in the small Tuscan village where my nana lived. I typed in the names for the booking. David Miller. Sarah Miller. And then I paused, my cursor hovering over the Add Passenger button. Liam. Chloe. 5 years of their faces flashed before my eyes, the polite dismissals, the vacant stares, the sound of their mocking laughter. I thought of my nana's warm, flour-dusted hands. I thought of laughing with my cousins until my sides ached. I thought of speaking Italian without having to explain myself. I thought of feeling whole. With a steady hand, I moved the cursor away from the Add Passenger button. I clicked Confirm Purchase for 2 tickets. A wave of something I hadn't felt in years washed over me, not guilt, not malice, but a quiet, powerful sense of resolve. This trip wasn't for the family. This trip was for my family. And for the first time in a very long time, it was for me. The email confirmation for 2 round-trip tickets to Rome sat in my inbox like a secret declaration of independence. For a few days, I said nothing. I let the decision settle within me, testing its weight. It didn't feel heavy with guilt, as a younger version of myself might have expected. It felt solid, like a foundation I was finally laying for my own well-being. The challenge, I knew, would be David. I chose a quiet Tuesday evening after the kids had retreated to their rooms, the house submerged in its usual digital silence. David was on the couch, scrolling through the news on his tablet. I sat beside him, my heart thumping a little faster. "I have some wonderful news," I began, keeping my voice even. "My mom called. The whole family is flying to Italy for Nana's 90th birthday. I've booked tickets for us." His face lit up instantly. "Sarah, that's amazing. Your Nana is a treasure. The kids will be so excited. Liam has always wanted to see the Colosseum." There it was. The casual, innocent assumption that us automatically included them. I took a deep breath. "David, I booked 2 tickets. For you and me." The smile on his face faltered, replaced by a look of profound confusion. "2? Why? I mean, what about Liam and Chloe? Is it a cost thing? We can make it work." "It's not about the cost," I said softly, but with a firmness that was new to our conversations. I looked him directly in the eye, willing him to see past the logistics and into the heart of the matter. "David, I need this. I need to go on a trip with my husband, to see my family, and to feel like me. Not the stepmom. Not the household manager. Just Sarah." He looked bewildered, as if I'd started speaking a foreign language. "But, there are kids. We're a family. Families go on vacation together. Are we a family?" The question hung in the air, sharp and uncomfortable. "David, I love you more than anything. But for 5 years, your children have made it painfully clear that I am an outsider. I plan parties they don't want, buy gifts they don't use, and offer help they don't accept. I overheard them, David. A while ago. They were making fun of me to their friends. Calling me desperate and cringe." His face fell. He looked pained, torn. "Sarah, I didn't know. They're just kids, they can be thoughtless." "Chloe is 15 and Liam is 17, I countered gently. "They're not little kids anymore. They are old enough to know that kindness is a choice. And they have consistently chosen not to extend it to me. I can live with that. I have been living with that. But I cannot be expected to reward that behavior with a dream trip to Italy. This trip is about my heritage, my grandmother, my family. It's personal. And honestly, I don't think I could bear their indifference in a place that means so much to me. It would break my heart all over again." He ran a hand through his hair, the conflict warring on his face. He was a good father, his instinct was to protect his children. But he was also a good husband, and he could see the deep, settled pain in my eyes. "I wish you had told me sooner about what you heard. What would you have done?" I asked. "Force them to apologize? You can't force a feeling, David. You can't mandate a bond. All I'm doing is accepting the reality they've presented to me for 5 years. I'm drawing a line, not in anger, but for my own sanity." He was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Okay, Sarah," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. "I don't love it. But I understand. I'll talk to them." The talk happened the next day. I wasn't present for it. I went for a long walk, giving them their space. When I returned, the atmosphere in the house was thick with a new kind of tension. It wasn't the old, cool indifference. It was a prickly, resentful silence. At dinner, Liam and Chloe barely looked at me. "Dad told us about your trip," Liam said, stabbing at his chicken with unnecessary force. "Sounds fun." The sarcasm was a blunt instrument. "It will be," I replied calmly, meeting his glare. "I'm very much looking forward to it." Chloe just pushed her food around her plate, her lower lip set in a pout. They didn't explode. Not yet. I think, in their teenage arrogance, they believed it was a bluff. A tactic. A lesson I was trying to teach them that they could easily overcome. They assumed that, in the end, I would cave. I was the try-hard stepmom, after all. Caving was what I did. In the weeks that followed, I let myself feel the joy of planning. I bought a new linen dress and a pair of comfortable walking sandals. I laid out a beautiful leather-bound travel journal on my nightstand. I practiced my rusty Italian with language apps, the melodic words feeling like home on my tongue. The house remained a Cold War zone, but for the first time, I had a shield. The anticipation of the trip was an armor against their silent glares and passive-aggressive comments. The reality of the situation finally seemed to dawn on them when a large new suitcase I'd ordered arrived. I left it in the hallway. It was a tangible object, a four-wheeled proclamation that this was happening. I was packing. We were leaving. And they were staying. I walked past the living room that evening and saw them sitting on the couch, not speaking. Chloe was staring at the suitcase, and for the first time, I saw not just petulance in her expression, but a flicker of genuine, bewildered hurt. Liam's jaw was clenched, his usual mask of cynical detachment replaced by something harder, angrier. The air crackled. They finally understood this wasn't a lesson. It was a boundary. And they were on the other side of it. The explosion I had been anticipating came on a Saturday, a week before the trip. David was out for the afternoon, running errands. The relative quiet of the house felt like the calm before a storm. I was in the kitchen, making a list of things to pack, when Liam strode in, his posture rigid with confrontation. Chloe trailed behind him like a nervous shadow, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "We need to talk," Liam announced, his voice lacking its usual sarcastic drawl. It was flat and hard. I put down my pen and turned to face them, leaning back against the counter. I refused to feel cornered in my own kitchen. "Okay. Let's talk. So this is really happening," he began, gesturing vaguely towards the hallway where my suitcase still stood. "You're just going to go to Italy and leave us here?" "Yes," I said simply. There was no need for embellishment. "Why?" he demanded, his voice rising. "What did we ever do to you that was so bad you have to punish us like this?" The sheer, unadulterated lack of self-awareness in his question was staggering. For a moment, I was speechless. All the small cuts and stings of the last 5 years, the ignored gifts, the deflected conversations, the mocking laughter, coalesced into a single, sharp point of pain in my chest. But this time, the pain didn't silence me. It fueled me. "Punish you?" I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. "Liam, this isn't a punishment. A punishment is a consequence for a specific action. This is the cumulative result of 5 years of your actions. This is me finally listening to the message you and Chloe have been sending me from day one." "What message?" Chloe piped up, her voice trembling slightly. "We're always polite to you." "Politeness is not a relationship, Chloe," I said, my gaze shifting to her. "Politeness is what you show a stranger at the grocery store. It's a shield." And you both have used it perfectly to keep me at arm's length. What did you do? You let the telescope I bought you gather dust. You let the records I gave you sit unopened. You've answered every question about your lives with one-word answers and shrugged off every single attempt I've made to build something real with you. I took a step forward, no longer leaning back. I was taking up space. Claiming it. And that's before we even get to the part where you sat in the next room and made fun of me to your friends. Did you think I wouldn't hear you? Did you think I didn't have feelings? You called me desperate. You called me cringe. Because I tried. Because I cared. Liam looked taken aback, a flicker of something, shame, maybe, crossing his face before it was replaced by hardened defiance. We were just messing around. It wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal to me, I stated. It was the moment I realized that I could spend the next decade of my life trying, and it wouldn't make a difference. Because you don't respect me. And a family, a real one, is built on mutual respect. It's a two-way street. I have been driving my half of the road for 5 years, and I've been met with a dead end every single time. Tears started to well in Chloe's eyes. They were tears of frustration, not remorse. But you're supposed to be our stepmom. You're supposed to be the adult. You're supposed to love us no matter what. I do love you, I said, and it was true, in a complicated, painful way. I love you because you are your father's children. But a relationship requires more than just a label. And being the adult doesn't mean I have to accept disrespect indefinitely. It doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep you warm. Then came the word. The one they had been building up to. The ultimate weapon in their arsenal. You're just being selfish. Liam spat, his face red with anger. This is all about you. You're tearing this family apart because you didn't get your way. The word selfish hit me, but it didn't hurt. It was liberating. For years, I had been the opposite of selfish. I had contorted myself into knots trying to please them, putting their comfort and their moods above my own needs. To be called selfish for finally attending to my own emotional health felt like a bizarre badge of honor. I laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, but one of pure, unadulterated irony. You know what, Liam? You're right. This one time, after 5 years of putting you two first, I am being selfish. I am choosing my own happiness. I am choosing to spend time with people who are happy to see me. I am choosing to visit my 90-year-old grandmother surrounded by love, not by indifference and resentment. And if that tears this family apart, then maybe the family you're talking about was never really built in the first place. I picked up my pen and my list from the counter. This conversation is over. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving them standing there in stunned silence. As I walked up the stairs, I heard the front door open. David was home. He would be walking into the aftermath of a war I had just finished. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. The truth was out. The line was drawn. And for the first time, the quiet in my own room felt like peace, not loneliness. The week leading up to our departure was an exercise in Arctic tension. The house, which had once echoed with a polite, empty silence, was now filled with a heavy, deliberate one. It was the silence of slammed doors, of footsteps that stopped when I entered a room, of meals eaten with a furious clatter of cutlery against ceramic. David was caught in the crossfire, his expression perpetually strained. He tried to broker a peace, suggesting a family meeting, but I held firm. There's nothing left to say, David, I told him quietly one night. They said their piece, I said mine. Now we just have to live with it. The morning we left for the airport was surreal. Liam and Chloe were awake, a rare occurrence for an early Saturday. They stood in the entryway, two sullen statues. There were no have a safe trip platitudes. Chloe wouldn't look at me, her eyes fixed on a scuff mark on the floor. Liam gave me a look of pure, undiluted animosity. Have a good time, David said to them, his voice overly bright. The words fell into the silence and vanished. The goodbye was a void. As the plane took off, lifting us above the clouds, I felt a physical unclenching in my shoulders I hadn't realized was there. The weight of that house, of those expectations, fell away. Beside me, David took my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles. He was still worried, but he was here. He had chosen me. That meant everything. Italy was a balm to my soul. The moment we stepped out of the airport in Rome, the air felt different, warmer, scented with espresso and exhaust fumes, alive with the vibrant chaos of a city that has seen millennia. For 2 days, David and I were tourists. We held hands walking through the Roman Forum, threw coins in the Trevi Fountain, and ate gelato without a care in the world. I watched David's stress melt away, replaced by the easygoing man I had first fallen in love with. We were not a dad and a stepmom, we were a husband and a wife on an adventure. Then we took the train to Tuscany, to my nana's village. The reunion was everything I had dreamed of. My nana, frail but with eyes as sharp and bright as ever, hugged me tightly, whispering mia cara, into my hair. My cousins, aunts, and uncles descended upon us with joyous shouts and bone-crushing hugs. Here, I was not try-hard. I was not cringe. I was Sarah, Serena, my family's Sarah. I slipped back into the easy rhythm of my mother tongue, laughing at old family jokes and helping my aunts roll out pasta dough in Nana's sun-drenched kitchen. One afternoon, I sat with my Nana on her small terrace overlooking the olive groves. I told her everything, not in a torrent of complaint, but as a simple, factual account of the last 5 years. She listened patiently, shelling fava beans into a ceramic bowl. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at me, her gaze clear and wise. A gardener cannot force a seed to sprout in bad soil, Serena, she said in Italian. You can give it water, you can give it sun, but if the soil itself rejects the seed, it will not grow. It is not the fault of the seed. Sometimes, you must let the soil rest. Sometimes, you must tend to the other parts of your garden that are blooming. Her words were a profound absolution. It wasn't my fault. I had provided the water and the sun. The soil had rejected me. Meanwhile, back home, a different kind of reality was setting in for Liam and Chloe. David called them every other day. His end of the conversations were brief and stilted. Yes, the pizza money is on the counter. No, I don't know where Sarah keeps the extra laundry detergent. You'll have to figure it out. One evening, Mark, the friend who had laughed at me, came over. He saw Liam microwaving a frozen dinner. Dude, where's the gourmet stuff your stepmom usually makes? He asked casually. Liam just grunted in response. Later, Chloe's favorite shirt had a stain on it. She instinctively went to ask me how to get it out before remembering I wasn't there. The house was messy. The fridge wasn't magically stocked with their favorite snacks. The small, invisible acts of care I performed daily were suddenly, glaringly visible by their absence. They were discovering that a house wasn't a home by default. It was made into one, day by day, by someone who was trying. On our last night in Italy, the entire family gathered for Nana's birthday dinner. Under a canopy of twinkling lights and grapevines, we ate and drank and told stories. As my uncle raised a glass to toast my Nana, I looked around at the faces of my family, faces full of love and acceptance. I felt a deep, grounding sense of peace. This trip wasn't an escape from my life. It was a reconnection to it. To the part of my life that was mine and mine alone. I had tended to the blooming part of my garden, and it was beautiful. Returning home felt different. Usually, the end of a vacation is tinged with sadness, but as our taxi pulled up to the house, I felt a sense of calm resolve. The week in Italy had been more than a holiday, it had been a realignment. I walked through the front door not as the anxious to please stepmom, but simply as Sarah, a woman who knew her own worth. The house was quiet. Liam and Chloe were home. I could hear the low hum of a television from the living room. They didn't come to greet us. We brought our suitcases upstairs, the silence of the house a stark contrast to the lively, chatter-filled homes we had just left in Italy. A part of me expected the same hostile atmosphere we had left behind, but something had shifted. The air wasn't thick with anger anymore, it was filled with a watchful, uncertain stillness. Later that evening, I was in the kitchen unpacking a small bag of gifts, a bottle of limoncello for a neighbor, some biscotti for David's office. Chloe appeared in the doorway, hovering hesitantly. This was new. Usually, she would breeze past without a word. "Hey," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Hi, Chloe," I replied, my tone neutral and calm. I didn't gush with relief or demand an apology. I just acknowledged her presence. She lingered for a moment longer. Did you have a good time?" "It was wonderful," I said, offering a small, genuine smile. "My Nana was so happy to see everyone." "Can I see the pictures sometime?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the floor. This was it. The first crack in the wall. It wasn't an apology, not yet. It was a question. An expression of interest in a part of my life she had previously dismissed. It was a tiny, fragile olive branch. "Of course," I said. "I'd like that." She nodded and disappeared back into the living room. It was a small exchange, maybe 30 seconds long, but it was more of a real connection than we'd had in years. It was a beginning. The next afternoon, I was reading in the den when I saw Liam walk past the doorway. He stopped, backed up, and stood there for a moment. He was holding the old, dusty DSLR camera I had once offered to teach him how to use, the one he had dismissed as lame. "This thing," he said, holding it up. "The battery's dead." "Where's the charger?" His tone wasn't warm, but the hard, angry edge was gone. It was just a question. A practical, technical question. "It's in the top drawer of the desk in here," I said, pointing. He found it, plugged the battery in, and then hesitated. "So, what does this aperture setting do?" Just like with Chloe, it was a question, not an apology. It was his way of opening a door he had long ago slammed shut. He was acknowledging an area where I had expertise, something I could offer that he now wanted. I put my book down. "It controls how much light gets to the sensor," I explained, my voice even impatient. "It also affects the depth of field. Do you want me to show you?" He shrugged, a classic teenage gesture of feigned indifference, but he didn't walk away. "Yeah, okay. Sure." So I spent the next 20 minutes explaining f-stops and shutter speeds to my 17-year-old stepson. He listened intently, asking smart questions. It wasn't a heartwarming, movie magic moment. But it was real. It was two people in a room, sharing knowledge, without pretense or history hanging between them. Things didn't magically become perfect overnight. There were still moments of awkward silence, and the ghosts of the past 5 years didn't vanish completely. But the foundation had shifted. The dynamic was different. I had stopped trying to force my way into their family, and in doing so, I had given them the space to approach me. A few weeks later, we were all in the living room. David was watching a documentary, I was editing photos from Italy on my laptop, and Chloe was doing her homework. Liam came in, camera in hand. "Hey, Sarah," he said. I looked up. "I was trying that thing you said about a slow shutter speed to get the motion blur. Check it out." He showed me the screen on his camera. It was a picture of cars at dusk, their headlights and taillights streaking across the frame. It was a good photo. A really good photo. "Liam, that's fantastic," I said, genuinely impressed. "You have a great eye." A rare, small smile touched his lips. "Thanks." I went back to my photos, a picture of my Nana's smiling face on the screen. I realized the vacation hadn't been about rejecting them. It had been about finding myself. By drawing the line and demanding respect, not for the title of stepmom but for myself as a person, I had changed the rules of the game. I had stopped pushing on a locked door and simply waited for them to find the key. The house was still quiet, but it was a new kind of quiet. It was the quiet of a blank slate. It wasn't the happy family I had once naively dreamed of forcing into existence, but it was something more valuable. It was something real, built not on desperate offerings, but on the tentative, fragile beginnings of mutual respect. And for the first time, it felt like home.